Dear Samaneras and dear Upasikas and dear brothers and sisters in the Dhamma, I'm so glad that in this evening we are all here to discuss a very difficult topic, the origin of life. This is a topic that many people are quite interested in knowing. There are many contemplations and many theories about this topic. But today, let us try to be familiar with the Buddhist teachings related to this topic. And when you say life, it can mean life that we are living as an individual being, and it can also mean the life of all the living beings. And when we read the teachings of the Buddha, the emphasis is to understand the life that we are experiencing within our body and mind, or our five aggregates, and that way we will be able to use that self-realization to understand all about life. So whenever we study about the life, we always try to look into history, look into different planetary systems, and always our attention is outward. That is how human beings have studied the origin of the world and origin of the life by examining the facts of the outside history or what is over there throughout this planetary system. So in order to understand the origin of life, many people have studied and done a lot of experiments and exploration of the outer world. But in the Buddhist tradition, what we find when we want to understand the origin of life or life is actually turn inward and understand the life that we are living. And that will provide us a model to understand all life. So it is like turning the telescope the other way around, right? Usually we put the telescope to the stars and want to see, right, outside. If someone turn the telescope other way around and inside, what you will see. Right? So that's the kind of approach that we find in the Buddhist teachings. To understand our own life, and that will help us to understand all life. So how we can do that? Most of the time, in our studies, in our practices, and in our meditation, we are doing that. But because people are so interested in knowing the life over there, I'm going to share with you a few teachings given by the Buddha with regard to life of all beings. But we need to understand ultimately our attention should be to understand our own life. But let's try to see what Buddha has said about life in general. And when it comes to origin, and there's a very important statement of the Buddha. It's called the discourse on leash. The leash, discourse on the leash, because there Buddha is giving a simile of a dog who's tied into a leash. But at the beginning of that discourse, Buddha said that anamataggo yang bhikkhave sansaro. Here, there Buddha talks about sansara. Anamataggo yang bhikkhave sansaro. That means the beginning is not discernible. The beginning of the samsara is not discernible. Or beginning of the samsara is not discoverable. So then why we talk about it, right? And Buddha has already said, it's anavataggo, is without a discoverable beginning. Because when you say a beginning or origin, we already assume a one entity. Right? The whole idea of beginning comes when we understand one entity. When we carve out one entity from the rest of the existence, like a one object, one entity, then we can talk about beginning, middle, and end of that entity. But the life is not understood in Buddhism as an entity. And then Buddha said that actually after he said that anamatagoyam bhikkhave sansaro, the sansara is without a discernible or discoverable beginning. Pubbo koti na panyayati. Pubbo koti, that means actually the point of origin, or beginning point. Beginning point is cannot be beginning point. The point of beginning cannot be pointed out. It is not. Is not. It does not. It cannot be pointed out. But the living beings are roaming and running around in the samsara, covered by, or maybe blinded by ignorance and craving. So what Buddha said, that the beginning point is undiscoverable, but as long as beings are fettered by or blinded by, influenced by two things, ignorance, avidya, and tanha, craving, and then as long as we are conditioned by these two things, and beings keep moving, roaming, and sansarati, running around. It is like, what is the river in Kuala Lumpur? What's the name of the river? Klang River. Klang River, yeah. Do you know the beginning of point of the Klang River? Yeah, we have a huge river, right? It's flowing. So we know it's flowing towards the ocean. So we know the end. How about the beginning? Can you go back and find out the beginning point of this river? Why not? Let's go. Yeah, if we go to the beginning, what will happen? I mean, you have this big river. Why not we go back and find out the beginning? When you go towards the beginning of the river, what you will find out? It will be divided into many streams, right? And so it's not, so realize that it's not actually one thing. Right now it's one river, but if you go to the origin of the river, to that direction, we will realize that, there are a number of streams coming and together and form in the river. And then you can go to the streams. And what you will find out? More streams, right? Smaller streams. And if you go to all these streams, how many little streams are, coming together and forming this river? So can you say that one stream is the beginning of the river? How about the other streams? So can we find out the beginning of the Klang River? Yeah. So what Buddha is saying about, about samsara, individual life, is something like that. Doesn't mean that there was no beginning, doesn't mean that there was a coming together and forming this samsaric life. There is causes and conditions that formed this individual existence that we are all going through. But it's causes and condition. It is complex. It's not one single point of beginning that everything suddenly started and they start to flow. And there are a number of causes and conditions, coming together and coming together and coming together, and then ultimately form the river. So our life is also like a river. If we cannot find out the beginning point of a river, how we can find out the beginning point of the life? And whenever we think about life in that way, we are assuming one permanent entity. But life is not a permanent entity. It's like a stream. It's like a river, definitely. So that is why Buddha said, it's indiscernible or undiscoverable, the beginning point. But the end point can be realized. He didn't say that end point is indiscernible. Beginning point, Pubbo Koti, the beginning point is undiscoverable, maybe indiscernible. But the end point can be realized. So Buddha was more interested not on the origin of life, but actually the end of the life, in that sense. How we can, gradually stop the continuous flowing. But anyway, so that's the teaching given by the Buddha. And when we think about our own life, the human conception, human being, we find a very interesting sutra called Chula Tanha Sankhya Sutra. And it's an important sutra, but in that sutra we find very interesting statement of the Buddha, how a human life origin, not origin means how our conception happens. Where there Buddha said that there had to be three conditions. There had to be three conditions coming together to give rise to conception of a human being. Three conditions. Can anyone guess one condition? What you need for a conception to happen? Yes, we need a man and a woman. Yes, we need a father and mother. They have to come together. Yeah, exactly. Buddha said that, Mata and Pitu, mother and father has to come together. They had to come together. And then what are the other conditions? That's the third one. Yeah. So Buddha said that you need three conditions. A mother and father should come together. They should copulate. And then the second condition is that Mata Utuni Hoti. Mother should be in her proper season. Not every time you get conception. Mother has to be in proper season. And then the third condition is called Gandhabboja Pachupatito Hoti. There should be an arrival, maybe a presence of a Gandhabba. So that's a very controversial term, Who is a Gandhabba, But maybe simply, it's actually a consciousness of a departed being. That will be an easy way to understand. So consciousness of a departed being. So we need three things. So when you conceived in your mother's womb, those are the three conditions that come together. Whenever these three conditions come together, there will be a conception. And in mothers, it should be in the proper season, and mother and father should come together. And there should be an arrival or a presence of a consciousness of a departed being who has craving for existence, bhava trishna. bhavatanha. Beings who have upadana, the grasping, and who have bhavatanha, craving for existence. And that's how all the beings are until we attain enlightenment. So the presence of a consciousness of such a being, an attached being, or departed being. So when these three conditions come together, and we will have a conception. So that will be the origin of our present life. But does it give an explanation of the origin of the life? That is the beginning of this life. But that consciousness that are present when all the other physical or biological conditions are complete, that consciousness coming from another life. From a departed being. Could be any being. So what we are seeing here, that there's a circular explanation, and in the circle is happening it's not like a straight line that we can find a beginning and end. There's more like a circle, maybe circular, more like a spiral. And this is what we find in the Buddhist description. So then, that is the other indication that we can have some understanding of the origin of life. But again, that it is tied into samsara, and then that consciousness that came from that being, and if we can ask where that being came from. That being came from his previous life, and then that being came from his previous life. So we can continuously go backward, and then we cannot find the beginning point of a stream. It is the beginning point of that being is undiscoverable, because there can be causes and conditions that form that being at one point. But that will be actually the craving. So whenever any cells, any organism, even a plant life, any organism that that respond into the environment and it try to survive, and if any point any organism will develop a craving, that will be the beginning of a being. So it can happen at any time, but you have to have like an organic life before that. For any plant is growing, simply responding to the outer environment. But if there was a time that this plant or this organism, this set of cells, will develop some form of craving, some form of needing. So that's the point that the organism is start to think as a separate entity. And that's where that organism will develop a sense of I and attachment. And that is start the whole cycle of samsara. So it's like a beginning of a river, there can be a number of causes and conditions that may lead to beginning of that craving. So in that case, the craving plays a very important role here. But for our conventional understanding, I would also like to share with you one important other discourse where Buddha talked about the origin of life on this planet Earth. So whenever in the modern science, when we think about the life, and we always think about the life on this planet, or maybe the life in the planetary system. But the Buddhist understanding of life is more broader than the life that the science is talking about. Because the science is talking about the life of animals, maybe plants, and then human beings. But the Buddhist understanding of life is broader than that. The life can exist not only as human beings or animal beings, life can exist as many other forms too. So the material form is only one way, or maybe organic form, or material form is only one way the life can exist. But there can be many other forms, which may not be complete like a hard matter, can be fine material forms, maybe more ephemeral forms of life. So therefore, the life can exist even in non-material forms. That is why we have so many realms in Buddhism. Celestial realms, and ghost realms, and of course animal realms and human realms. So in the celestial realms, there can be various differences. There can be celestial beings whose preoccupation of the mind is the sensual pleasure, like human beings and animals. So we call them kama vajara. Their prime motive is to find pleasure, just like us. There can be divine beings of that kind, but their bodies are very ephemeral, celestial, and fine material. So they are kama vajara. But there can be other beings whose prime motive is not the sensual pleasure, but the form, the images. So there can be rupa vajara, so we call Brahma realms. And there can be other beings who are actually even gone beyond the preoccupation with the images. We call arupa vajara, or formless realms. So there are many ways the life can exist. So therefore, when we have that broader understanding of life, it becomes so complex to discuss the origin of life. But let's talk about the Buddha's explanation about how this earth got populated. But we also need to understand the context where Buddha gave these teachings. There's, I think, one important sutra. You may have heard about it. It's called Agganya Sutta. Maybe like the knowledge of the beginning. But actually, when you read that sutra, you understand it's not really the beginning. Maybe the beginning of one cycle. But it's called Agganya, the knowledge of the beginning. But this sutta is given by the Buddha, not specifically to explain the origin of life. The Buddha wanted to explain a very specific thing. He wanted to explain the origin of caste system. Origin of caste system. Because the way the caste system was explained in the Vedic religion is they have a creation story, just like other religions, and they say that originally, from the very beginning, the human society was originated as four different classes, and they have a creation story. There's one giant being, and this giant being manifested into different categories. The head part was manifested into one kind of beings, and they are called Brahmins. And his shoulders was manifested into another kind of beings, and they are called warriors or Kshatriyas, the rulers. And his thighs was manifested into another kind of human beings, and they are called, Vaishyas or commoners, common people. And his feet manifested into another kind of beings, and they are called Shudras, or the servants, or the let's say servants, laborers. So the explanation was that from the very beginning of human society, there were these four kinds of people, because it's a manifestation of one giant being, and his different body parts was manifested into different kinds of people. So this division of the caste was from the very beginning of the human society. There was no time in human society that there were no such divisions. That was the Vedic religion. But Buddha wanted to give a more naturalistic explanation of these castes. And Buddha wanted to say that originally there were no caste. Actually, according to Agani Sutta, originally there was no even female and male too. I mean, the original beings were genderless. That is the explanation of the Buddha. So Buddha wanted to explain how exactly these four kinds of, castes came into being through a real, through evolution, due to, certain, actual economic and political reasons, and these castes came into being. So he wanted to explain the origin of the caste system. So that is the purpose. So we need to understand that. Buddha wanted to give a very naturalistic, more sociological explanation about the origin of caste system. Because this Agani Sutta was given by the Buddha to two monks who actually became monks from the Brahmin caste. And they, in their conversation, Buddha asked about them, and how you are doing, and you are from the Brahmin caste, and do you meet your friends, your colleagues, and say, yes, we meet them, but they accuse us. They accuse us, and you were originally pure beings, and now you are mixed with, other beings, and it's such a bad thing. And Buddha explained to these two monks, actually, although these Brahmins claim that they are born from the mouth of the Brahma, but the real history they don't know. So let me explain how this four castes came into being. But anyway, in that explanation, we find very interesting step-by-step explanation of the evolution, maybe how this earth got populated. And this is the brief explanation. And Buddha said that any planet has four paces. Four paces. It's called open pace, closing pace, closed pace, and what will be the fourth one? Opening place. Okay. Anyway, let's say there's an open pace of a planet, closed pace of a planet, and in between there's a process of opening and there's a process of closing. You should understand the four paces of the planet. So there'll be, the planet which is inhabited by living beings, that is open pace. There'll be a time in a planet there's no living beings, not suitable for life. That will be a closed pace. But in between, there can be a process of opening, there can be a process of closing. That is how we got the four paces. So Buddha said that there can be a long period of time in these four paces. So Buddha said that there's a time of contraction, maybe closing. When the planet is closing or contracting, the beings cannot live there. Gradually, the condition is becoming unfavorable for life. So what is happening? The beings who have died there will be born in the Brahma realm, in a realm that doesn't need physical body. But there will be a time after a very, very long time, these planets will get ready for life. There is an opening pace. And then what is going to happen? Those beings will come back to this planet. So Buddha is talking about this earth planet. There was a time this planet was slowly opening, like maybe slowly getting ready for life. So slowly opening. That early in that period, there was a set of beings came from the Brahma realm. Their nature was self-luminous. They have very subtle bodies. They did not need solid food. They were actually eating the joy. The mental joy was their food. How wonderful that life is, right? Piti baka, they are eating the joy. and such a pleasant life, right? Doesn't require, solid food. So they had such a nice, this is the Brahma world, and from the Abhasara Brahma world. So when the earth is like slowly opening up, the set of beings from the Brahma world with self-illuminous, luminous beings, they came, but somehow they got, they liked this earth, and they were roaming around this earth. And at that early period, it says that this earth was covered with water, and eventually this earth also developed as a kind of layer similar to a thick layer of a milk. When you boil the milk, you get a thick layer, right? Similar to that, there was a layer around the earth. It's called Patavi Rasa. It's called like a nectar of the earth. The earth was covered by this beautiful, nice layer, and it said that it's so fragrant. It's so fragrant and also very delicious. So originally these beings who were like roaming around, they were self-sufficient, luminous. They just be happily beings. And they was like roaming around this earth, but they start to smell this layer, this nectar. And out of curiosity, they want to test this. What is this? For the first time, they tasted this layer around the earth, the nectar. So sometimes curiosity can bring you a lot of troubles. Remember that. So these luminous beings, out of curiosity, they want to they smell it and they want to do it more. Even when we are small children, right? We want to experience any object with all our five senses. We see it, we smell it, we hear it, we touch it, and then we want to taste it. Even a plastic thing, babies want to taste it. That's how, out of curiosity, we want to know more about it. So that's what happened to these beings. So when they tasted this nectar, the earth nectar, wow, that is so delicious. And they get attached to it. They develop craving. And they start to continuously eat it because that's so delicious. And what happened as a result? They continue to, taste this nectar. And the more they taste it, their bodies now their bodies are transforming. They had very literal, very ephemeral, like a floating kind of bodies, but now they are tasting the nectar, the layer of the earth, and their bodies are slowly getting little coarse, gross, and harder. So they are losing, and then as a result, they start to lose their luminosity, self-luminosity. They are losing it because their bodies is getting gross and solid. And so they keep, eating this layer again and again. And after a while, because of their overeating, because they are so craving for this, so greedy for this, the earth nectar, and that nectar disappeared when they ate it all. Yeah. It's disappeared, because of their craving. Yeah. You may be laughing at these beings actually, but even today, we are still actually eating the nectar of the earth. Don't you think so? Not like that layer, curd-like layer around the, but when we eat plants, seeds, fruits, everything, they are from the earth, right? Those plants will absorb, and now we have the medium, right? We don't directly eat the nectar of the earth, but we have a medium. The plants will absorb the nectar of the earth, and they will produce those nectar in the forms of fruits, grains, and fruit plants, and then we will eat them. We still eat the earth nectar, but in different way. So because of their craving, and that earth nectar disappeared, and they got really upset. And now they have gross bodies, and after that, actually, after that nectar disappeared, and there was another kind of things that start to arise around this planet, earth. It is called like a fungus type of, like a more, it says that actually similar to mushroom, type of fungus, like a mushroom from the earth. Then they start to eat that. Earlier it was a little bit solid, but now it's like a fungus, the mushroom. So it's more solid food than the previously. As a result of eating these mushrooms, this fungus, more and more, their bodies getting grosser and grosser and grosser and solid. And then, and they start to eat, and after a while, this fungus, this mushroom also disappeared. And then they are again sad and upset. And then there was another kind of plant arose in this planet. It's called, it's like, like a pods, bursting pods. It's maybe like a small plant. It's called Padalata. It's more like it's like earlier as a mushroom, but it's more like now more, it's like a pods, like bursting pods. When any seeds start to give a plant, what comes out like sprouts. Yes, let's say sprouts. So now the earth is covered with sprouts. So then they start to eat that. And then what is happening? The more they eat this solid food, the more their body is getting grosser and grosser and grosser. And now what happened actually? Now because the bodies are getting grosser and grosser, their appearances are getting dissimilar. Originally, they are all the same. But now, their bodies are getting a little different from each other. And then what happened? They're looking into each other, and some are beautiful than others. And then there are physical differences in physical features. And what happened? And then they start to create a self-image and image of the others. And those who are more beautiful than others and develop arrogance. And they start to look down on others. And because of that mana, that arrogance, that sprouts also disappeared. So we can see the more the defilements arising in the minds of these beings, that there's a change happening in the physical environment. And the sprouts also gone, and now they are again in trouble. And then they got actually for the first time, they get the kind of rice. It is called ripe, untilled rice. Originally, rice has no husk. And it's already ripe. You don't have to boil. You just go and eat. That kind of rice. And they are growing back very quickly. You go, when you're hungry, you go and eat. The next day, it is grown back again. Next day, you go and eat again. Come back. Next day, again, they are growing back. Very fast growing kind of rice with no husk. They start to eat that. Okay, now, very interesting thing happened. Because now there are different changes in the body, right? And when they start to eat this rice, then the division between male and female appeared. So according to this sutta, when only after we start to eat rice, the female and male differences start to appear. Grains actually say, let's say grains, not necessarily rice, grains. What happened? So already there were differences in the physical features, but as a result of eating these grains more and more, certain bodies become quite soft, malleable, and the other bodies became quite hard and strong. So there are slowly, what nowadays we call male characteristic of the bodies appeared in some bodies, and female characteristic of the bodies appear in other bodies. Slight differences. So when they start to appear, and then when there are so much differences in these bodies, they start to stare at each other. Oh, this is so different from mine. So as a result of staring of each other's body, eventually they develop lust. So the lust for human bodies is usually appeared to the opposite kind. There can be some divergence too. So because they keep looking at the different bodies, and they develop lust on each other. And after a while, after a while, I think I had to. So after a while, what happened? This nice, the rice, smelling nice, good rice that you simply go and eat, and because actually, then the male and female they develop lust each other, and then they start to meet together each other and sleep together each other, and then as a result of the lust originated in these beings, and that rice also disappeared. And actually what happened, rice changed, and rice develop a husk, and they are not going to grow automatically as fast as before. Now they have to grow it. And so the life is getting harder and harder. Originally this beings has a really a very simple life, but now it's getting harder and harder. The more they bound to earth, the more they develop craving and wanting of the earth, and their life is getting harder and harder. The more the defilements they generate, they appear in their mind, the physical environment is getting unfavorable to them. So this is what happened, and then eventually they had to grow the rice, and then now they have families, because now they are male and females. So actually that's the beginning of human life, because now they have human beings, originally genderless beings. So now they have these beings, and there are so many changes happen after that, because once they start to grow the rice, and actually before that there was another interesting thing happen. Usually when they have the original rice that is already open and ripe, whenever they feel hungry they go and eat. But at one time there's one being who was lazy, thought that why I want to go to this land to eat rice whenever I feel hungry. Why not I go and eat breakfast and take some from my lunch? So one lazy being, out of laziness, took extra rice other than what he needs for his hunger, and take back home. And the other beings also saw that, and they also imitated him. So these are the principles how the human behavior. One is laziness. We try to do things in the easy way. That is how we have evolved. We have developed so many instruments, so many tools, because we want to do things easily, right? So laziness can be a good motivation to develop so many things. So one is laziness, other one is imitation, following what others do. So one lazy person took the rice home, others also started to take the rice. That is the reason actually originally this beautiful nice rice that are growing very quickly disappeared, because they will take portion of it. Though they don't simply go and eat, they take some back home, and when everyone is taking portion back home, and that the plant disappeared. And then they had to and then there was different plant but with husk, and we had to now cultivate. And anyway, so after they start to cultivate, now they decided, okay, now we have to work hard. This is not naturally growing. Therefore, everyone has to work hard. Everyone has to have fair share of their labor. So they decided, okay, in that case, let us divide the land evenly. For the first time, the concept of private property. Originally, they don't have any sense of property. When they're hungry, they just go and eat. But now, they have to work. Therefore, they divided the land. Okay, this land, this piece of land belongs to you. You work hard and you grow your own rice. And this, plot of land belongs to you and you work hard. So then, now they have families, so they will eat from their own plot of land. But one day, one person, not taking the rice from his own land, thought that I will save my rice, and he took rice from another person's plot of land. The first crime in the humankind was stealing. And he took rice from another plot of land. And then the owner of the plot of land told him, that is not fair, don't do it again. He promised he will not do again. But after a few days, he did it again. The second crime, lying. He promised he will not do it, but again he took the rice from the other person's land. Now he's angry because he is taking from his land. So then of course, when other people saw that, I can keep my rice and take from another one's rice, and others also start to imitate and follow the person. So many people start to take rice from other person's land. And what happened? They start to fight. They start to fight and quarrel, hit each other. Now there's a big problem, chaotic situation. You fight with each other. Then they decided, in order to solve this problem, in order to protect everyone's right, and in order to keep the harmony, let us appoint a person who will examine all cases and give appropriate punishment to people. So instead of like fighting with each other, we will appoint a third party who will examine all the cases and give appropriate punishment. So they all come together and appointed a ruler. That is how we got the kings, called Mahasammata, the convention of the appointment, convention appointment. So then Buddha said that, okay, that is how the warrior caste came into being. So according to the Buddha's explanation, it is not the Brahmin who came first. Actually, it is the ruling caste, the warrior caste, the caste the Buddha is from. They came first because they were not born into that caste, but they were appointed from the common people to manage this whole situation, to rule this, the population. And then, of course, Buddha keep going into explain that there was a group of people who actually got really disappointed with this, this stealing and lying and this, this quarreling and this judgments, court, and they decided to leave this society and they want to live a more moral life, and they separated themselves and went to forest and they started to live a very moral life, and they are the Brahmins originally, but they came back later. So Buddha is explaining how gradually, due to real, the social reasons, these different castes, came into being, and then some people start to, do the business and cultivation. They become the common people. Some started to do, minor works and minor laboring works, and they became the, Shudras, the laborers. So that's how the Buddha explained, giving an explanation of the evolution of the human society, but mainly explaining the origin of the caste system. But before that, he gave this interesting explanation about how the earth got populated. But we need to understand this is like Buddha is giving a counter myth. There was a creation story, a creation myth, and Buddha is giving a counter story that gives a more naturalistic explanation of the human being. So according to that story, the human society was not divided at the beginning. They were common beings. And actually, originally, they were genderless beings. According to the creation story of the Western world, in the Western religions, Abrahamic religions, according to the creation story, the creation was the man. Man was created first, right? And after a while, and the thought came to the Creator, the man was alone by himself. I should give him a companion. So he put the man into sleep again and took one of his ribs and then created a woman. So the woman was created to help the man to get rid of his loneliness, according to that creation story, right? So the woman was created to help the man. And women came late. The man came first, and women came late. And in fact, the woman was a part of the man, because the woman was created from the rib of the man. So originally, in that original creation story, the women were already like not the first comers. They are second comers, and they are subordinate, and they came to because of the man's need. That's the attitude. That's the idea that is presented there. But according to the Aganya Sutta, the man and woman, the male and female, did not come one after the other. They arose at the same time because they were developing different physical features. So they came into being at the same time because of the different manifestation, different development of the bodies because of the solid food. So at least when you tell this counter story, we get the idea that actually not the man didn't come first and not the women came late. And this story is saying that no, the man and women came together. They were the same beings, they were genderless beings, and eventually we developed gender eventually through the evolution, and those both came at the same time. That is the other message that is given here. And then of course any division of the human society, whether the caste or the classes or any division, is actually due to political, economic, historical reasons, and it's nothing to do with any essential thing in any beings. So that is the message. But other important message, important lesson that we can find in this sutta is actually see the interdependence, the principle of dependent origination. How these beings are influenced by the outer environment, and how different emotions are developing in the human mind, how different emotions influence the natural world, and then how our consuming habits changes the natural world. So interaction between the human mind, the natural world, and our behavior, and the natural world. So we can see this causes and condition interaction, this dependent origination, whole causal relationship between human bodies, human mind, and physical environment. So the interplay between these three things: human body, human mind, and natural world. They are interacting with each other. Our thoughts influence the natural world. The arrogance change, the natural world. The craving change the natural world. And so our emotions, and actually jealousy also, and arrogance, jealousy also, change the natural world. So there's always interaction between human mind and the natural world, and human mind and the body. These three things, work together and interacting each other. So the underlying principle is the dependent origination. So that is the message that is given in this Aganya Sutta. So it's not about actually the origin of life, because the beings who came here came from the Brahma world, but they were already beings even before that. So it's only showing how the earth got populated due to natural causes and conditions. But anyway, What is most important according to the Buddha's teaching is actually pay attention to the life that we all have direct experience with. That is the life within us. So there's one important sutta called Loka Sutta. The Buddha is talking about the world. Monks, let me tell you the beginning of the world and end of the world. Are you ready to listen? The beginning of the world and the end of the world? Okay. Okay. So you may think that I will try to explain like a Big Bang, right? So this is how the Buddha said that. Monks, this is in the Loka Sutta. I will teach you the origination of the world and the ending of the world. Listen, pay close attention. And the monk said, yes, Venerable Sir, we will pay close attention. And the Buddha said that, what is the origination of the world? Depending on the I and the forms, there arises I consciousness. Meeting of the three is contact. From contact as a requisite condition comes feeling. From the feelings as requisite condition comes craving. From craving as requisite condition comes clinging. From clinging as requisite condition comes becoming. From becoming as a requisite condition comes birth. From birth as a requisite condition come aging, death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, distress, despair. This is the origination of the world. Okay, this is how the Buddha explained the origination of the world. Not the Big Bang. He started with our eye and the visual forms. And then he go to ear and sounds, nose and smells, tongue and the taste, the body, the skin and the tactile sensation, and then the mind and the mental objects. And the Buddha said, when these things meet each other, there's a contact, first impression, sensory impression, and then we develop feelings. And when we develop feelings, we develop craving. When we develop craving, grasping. And when we develop grasping, we form a being. We become someone. It is through grasping that we become someone. We develop this, idea of existence. And then through the idea of existence, we can be born into different forms, different physical, forms. And that is the origination of the world. Okay? So do you want to listen to the end of the world? So don't be afraid it's not going to be destruction of the planet. The end of the world. This is very interesting. Where do you think that the end of the world happens? So we know that now the beginning of the world happened when the eye made the visual form, the ear made the sounds, and then the feelings and the craving and the grasping and becoming, and then born into different realms. And then the real world, according to the Buddha, is the sorrow, the lamentation, all the disappointments and all the suffering experience we are having. That is the beginning. What would be the end? Where can be the end happen? Can we go blind and be deaf? Would that be the end of the world? Listen carefully. Please discern, try to catch, okay? I'm going to read. You have to catch the point where the world ends, okay? What is the ending of the world? Depending on the I and the forms, there arises I consciousness. Meeting of the three is contact. From contact as a requisite condition comes feelings. From feeling as a requisite condition comes craving. Now, from the remainderless cessation, fading away of that very craving, comes the cessation of clinging. From the cessation of clinging comes the cessation of becoming. From the cessation of becoming comes the cessation of birth. From the cessation of birth, then aging, death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, despair, all ceases. Such is the cessation of the entire mass of suffering. This is the end of the world. Did you catch where the end of the world starts? Where? Did he talk about the eye and the meeting of the visual forms? Did he talk about the contact, feeling? Where the end of the world starts? Yeah, let me read again, okay? This is a very important point. Yeah. Depending on the eye and forms, there arises eye consciousness. Meeting of the three is contact. From contact as a requisite condition comes feelings. From feelings as a requisite condition comes craving. Now, from the remainderless cessation of and fading away of that craving comes the cessation of clinging. And from the cessation of clinging comes the cessation of becoming and the birth and the sorrow. We are the very important point where the whole world can start or end is the connection between the feelings and craving. I think even yesterday we had that discussion. So as long as we have sensory organs, they are held, they are functioning, we will get to see the visual forms and sounds and everything. And we will have, initial Vedana, initial, sensory feeling quality of the sensory objects. And the sensory objects are either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And that is very normal, very natural, very automatic. That happens automatically without our involvement in it. The sensory encounters and having a feeling, like a felt quality of the environment, sensory stimulus, that happens automatically. But then we jump in. We jump in from like a connection between craving and clinging. When you have pleasant sensations, and that comes natural as a natural process. But for the pleasant sensation, we develop craving, wanting it more and more. For unpleasant, we develop resentment, dislike, rejection. Right? For neutral, it's a different thing happens. We strengthen our sense of I when we have neutral sensations, and that it is that reaction that starts the whole world for us. But of course, if you want, we can expand the connection between feeling and craving. Like because after feeling, we will interpret it, we will bring our past memories, and we will think about it and reason about it and give a name and give some value to that object, and then that's how we develop craving. So there are more cognitive process happening between feeling and craving. But anyway, at the last moment, what we try to do is like we want some kind of feelings more, and we don't want other kinds of feelings anymore. And as a result of that, we develop grasping, craving, and the grasping develop the sense of being, sense of I, and then that will lead us to all kinds of possible births and experiences. So that is the kind of world that the Buddha is interested in and helping us to understand, and that will be the beginning and the end of the world, or beginning and the end of the life. So here again we can understand how the Buddha talked about the inner world. So when we talk about the Buddha's quality, we say loka vidu, right? That means know of the world. But when you say know of the world, we mean three things, three levels of the world. And when we chant that Navaguna Gatha, what we say, anybody remember that, Arahang Arahoti Namena, and you go to the Loka Vidu, what you say? Loka Viduti Namena. Yes, you have the book with you, right? Yeah, can you read that? Loka Viduti Namena Atita Nagate Vidu Sankara Satta Okase Loka Vidu Namate Namo. That's the important part. Sankara Satta Okase. Can you read that, brother? Yeah. Pali, yeah. Yeah, Buddha said Loka Vidu, know the world, because he know three levels of the world. that is Sankhara, Sattva, Okasa. Let me start with Okasa. Okasa means a space world. Okasa means a space. The Buddha knew about the space world. That means the world that science study, the planets, the space, the planets. And that is why Buddha talks about there are different phases of every planet, closing place, opening place, close and open place. So he talks about different solar systems and like thousands of suns and moons. So that is called knowing the space world, Akasa. And next one is Sattva. That is the world of the beings. In addition to this physical, like a space world, there's a whole different, maybe parallel or enveloping world of beings. Because beings can exist in different realms. The earth is populated only by human beings and animals, but there are other levels of the beings, celestial beings, ghosts, and altogether there are many levels of beings, and if you count even subsection, there are 31 levels of life. 31 levels of beings, like 6 divine realms, and 16 Brahma realms and 4 formless Brahma realms, and then animal realms and ghost realms. Altogether you come to 31 planes of existence. That is the world of the beings, Sattva. So Buddha knew about what are the kinds of beings, how our mind can be manifested in different forms, and what kind of life can exist in the world. And he knew about those possible manifestations of the life. There are at most 31 manifestations. Because he knew about that, he's called Sattva Loka. Akasa Loka and Sattva Loka. But the most important Loka is Sankhara. Sankhara Loka, that is the world of the 5 aggregates that each and every one of us is having, the inner world. That is the world the Buddha explained here, how that world starts with eye, ear, and our sensory organs and our encounter with the other environment. So the Buddha is more interested in explaining the Sankhara Loka, or the inner world, where we start our whole experience of the world, and we can talk about all other worlds too. So because he knew about these 3 worlds, and he's called Lokavidu, but most of his teachings is not about the space world. There are some teachings, and there are also some teaching about the different levels of the beings, but most of his teachings is about the inner world, the Sankhara world. Because that knowing that world will enable us to understand all other worlds. So in that way, how I would like to conclude this, the life actually continues to, it's not really the origin and the end of the life. Life continuously manifests every time. Every moment, our life is popping up and disappearing and popping up and disappearing. It's happening every moment too. And that's the kind of life that Buddha was interested in. And we need to understand how our 5 aggregates keep popping up and dying and keep popping up, and how we reconstruct our 5 aggregates continuously, every moment, how we are reconstructing, rebuilding our 5 aggregates, and that is the life. So that would be the focus explanation of the Buddha's analysis. So I hope that I did not confuse you. Yeah, but understand that how the Buddhism understands life is quite different from the understanding of the modern science. But most important thing, according to the Buddha, is to understand how life happens within us at every time. It's not the beginning. How life happens at every time within us. Understand it. Through how our sensory organ function. When you understand how life happens every time within us, that will help you to understand the rest of the universe and the world. Yes. Thank you. So we can have some discussion. Yeah.
Bhante, you, in your concluding statement, you mentioned the 5 khandhas. Would it be accurate to say that if all those 5 aggregates is eliminated, then there's no more life? Or what does the inference that I gather is that, you know, the life that we see now is a collection of all our senses. The ear, the eye, the nose, tongue, body, and sometimes they say the mind. So maybe you could give us a very short explanation. And what I learned in the past is that the Buddha also said, he who sees the Dhamma sees the Buddha. And there's one other topic that my late teacher taught us. I think that will also help us a lot to understand the process of perception, the story about seeing an object, the subject, and that there's no seer or there's no thinker. Maybe you could concisely, just very short, help us to understand the complexity of the whole situation.
Again, the question is?
The question is, in other words, the 5 aggregates is the life that we see ourselves, right?
Yes.
So, in other words, personally, okay, I see that to reach a deathless situation, nibbana or whatever, the other word that you would want to see, you have to go through the process, whatever, the 10 paramitas and whatnot. So, as long as there's no future birth, there's no more dying.
Yeah, I think the life as we experience right now is the 5 aggregates, but these 5 aggregates keep producing again and again. And with every sensory encounter, we either reform our previous aggregates or we produce new one. So there's a constant arising of aggregates every time. So in the process of enlightenment, what we are doing is actually, in addition to aggregates, in addition to khandhas, as ordinary, human beings, ordinary beings, we also have grasping or identification of these aggregates, upadana. So not only there are 5 khandhas here, but there's also an identification of these khandhas and forming of an owner, forming of an I to these khandhas. So in the process of enlightenment, in our spiritual growth, what is happening is actually we are slowly understanding these aggregates are natural, function both material and mental, and we are slowly understand the anatta, and we slowly disidentify. So we are removing the identification. We are removing the grasping to these aggregates. So that is why even an arahant, he is living with the aggregates, but there's no identification, there's no grasping to it. So I think what happened in our life is that the life, if you think life as an organism, and this, any plant or any organism, it has its own, movement. But as long as we have cravings, we create an identity to that natural organism. And we actually disturb the life with our craving, with our identification, with owning that whole thing. So with spiritual development and enlightenment, we are like removing that mistake and let the life to be life, and without owning it and separating certain part and owning it and falsely owning it. So we let the life to be life rather than taking it and making it mine. That's what that is happening in the process of enlightenment.
Ownership of the
Aggregates.
Just now, you mentioned the sutta when Buddha was explaining to the Brahmins about how life existed. Did he mean it in a literal sense or did he mean it in a metaphorical sense? Because if he meant it in a literal sense, it doesn't really go with how modern science views how we came onto this earth, which is like through evolution. So, Bhante, could you please elaborate?
Very good question. So in the Buddhist tradition, there are two explanations. Some think that this is a very literal explanation, but some say that this is a metaphorical explanation, because the context where Buddha gave this teaching, his main purpose was to explain the historical evolution of the caste and say that this caste did not exist from the very beginning. It came later due to historical reasons. So it could be metaphorical, but I think the principle that he is highlighting in that, as I mentioned, like the interaction between human body, human mind, and natural world. This interaction, like that principle is true. That principle is realistic. So some in a tradition, some commentaries, some Buddhist teachers would say that this is the literal explanation. This is how exactly the earth got populated, and others will say that no, this is metaphorical. And Buddha is providing a counter story to the Brahmanic, Vedic story. Whether it is a metaphorical or real, but the principle that is arising from this story, which is the dependent origination, that is the real principle that is operating in the evolution, in the world. Yeah.
I see. Thank you so much, Bhante.
One other, comments that, if anybody's explanation doesn't match with the science, we don't have to be afraid of that, because science will change soon. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be, matching. Yeah.
When you have a clear mind, you can definitely see that if there's no birth, there's no dying. Okay? I think this message is extremely clear. So, I don't have to learn too much Buddhism or whatever. Okay? As long I can achieve, I wouldn't aspire for anything. All I need to do is be very sure, given the good teachers that we have now, I just make an aspiration. And I feel that I can confidently arrive one day in the future.
Let's say sadhu 3 times. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. This robe is simply a piece of rectangular, cloth, rectangular piece of cloth. It is not a dress. Therefore, there are no buttons, and there's no holes, put our hands, everything. So we don't dress. Monks do not dress. So we wrap around ourselves. That's what we do. And even, so even in our Sinhala language, we don't say, I dress robe. you say Poravanava, that means I wrap around the robe. So because of that, because it's not a dress, you wrap around it, and you really have to maintain your mindfulness to keep your robe without falling. Right? Definitely. So when I was a small monk, and that was the biggest challenge, definitely, to actually keep the robe on the body. So then I was not able to run as I wish. So automatically I was disciplined because of the robe. And then also like constant mindfulness of the robe. So I think, so even right now, so whenever we travel, whenever we move and we stay, we have to be mindful of the robe because it can fall at any time. So that helps you to remind yourself that you are a monk. So it will not let you forget, your robes will not let you forget that you are a monk or a nun. Yeah. So, but of course, once you can get used to it, and then it will be a simple thing, after a while. But it's still, we have to adjust our robe. We have to make sure that it's not, falling. It's not, revealing anything. So the having a robe on our body is a constant reminder, and it's a help, as a tool for monks and nuns to practice, be mindful of every moment. Yeah.
Thank you, Bhante.
The practice of samatha and vipassana is actually to address two things. Because craving is based on ignorance, avidya. So these are like together. Actually, there's one place Buddha talk about, if you want to say father and mother of the suffering, the mother is the craving, father is the ignorance. You need two to give rise to one. So the ignorance and craving, or avidya and tanha, is the parents of the suffering. So your question was that how we can eradicate craving through meditation. Through samatha meditation, we reduce the tendency to attach, tendency to look for stimulations. Because normally we want something to gratify our senses, and that's how we live our life, right? I mean, we need something to see, we need something to hear, listen, taste, and we have all these senses keep functioning and moving, and that's how people try to do. But in samatha meditation, we learn that we can be completely okay even without having any gratification to our senses. So you withdraw from your senses and learn to be fully contented, which is not easy for an ordinary person. To withdraw from the senses and be fully contented. It's not easy because we are family we used to be happy with our sensory organs. So with samatha form of meditation, we learn a different kind of happiness that is away from our sensory organs, more like an inner composure, inner peace, less agitation, and you experience different kind of joy there. So by doing that, you reduce the pattern, the habitual patterns to look for pleasures. But you will not completely eradicate. That's more like a calming. So from samatha actually you address the craving. You address the craving, you reduce the craving. Because you have a different joy than a craving for sensual pleasures. You have a replacement. Yes?
Because I'm using anapanasati,
Mm.
the method
Mm.
to quiet calming the mind. And the thing is, there is this sensation in the body that is very nice. I mean, the
I would say that if you develop attachment to piti, the piti will disappear. Because piti comes when our mind is free from hindrances. The 5 hindrances, kama, chanda, pleasure. And whenever you start to feel wanting it more, craving, and you will lose it.
Yeah, but it's true, but then you come back.
Yeah, come back means you let go of the 5 hindrances.
Means that I have to refocus back to my breathing.
Yes. And then that will be the, like a byproduct. And but anyway, so what is happening there, that you train your mind to stay away from the, so you are reducing the gravity, the power of the craving. You're not eradicating it, but you are reducing the power of the craving. I'm just, explaining how the, meditation is helping us to get rid of the craving. But the complete remainderless removal of the craving happens when you remove the avijja. That happens, that, and of course, with insight, more developing more insightful understanding and wisdom. What is happening there is that craving is occurring to us when we have a belief that, any whatever pleasant thing or unpleasant things, they exist independent of us. And therefore we either want it or we don't want it. So any pleasant object, we believe that they exist independent of us. Any unpleasant object, we believe that they exist independent of us. So as long as we have that assumption, unconscious, acceptance that these sensory objects exist independent of us, they'll be necessarily will develop craving. You can reduce it with samatha. With deeper practice of vipassana and then understanding, what we are realizing is actually those sensory objects, pleasant or unpleasant, neutral, do not exist outside of ourselves as we experience them. Those objects appear right there at that moment of my experience due to a lot of causes and conditions right there. When you deeply understand that, these pleasant or unpleasant objects are arising at that very moment and ceasing completely after that moment, when you directly experience it, what you realize is actually there is nothing to crave for. So then definitely craving will be gone because you realize that there's nothing to crave. It is like, let's say you look your own reflection in the water and you either want it or you blame it, or you can have all kind of reaction to your reflection thinking that there's being over there, like a dog. Maybe a monkey with a mirror. But when you deeply realize that that reflection occurs when only I look at it, due to that very momentary condition create that reflection over there, there's no real being as I see over there. There's some, elements there, but there's no real being as I see it there. And will we develop craving? Because you deeply realize that there's nothing. What to crave for? That's what happens in the vipassana meditation. That is how the craving is gone.
That means vipassana is done after samatha, or at the end of samatha is...
you can do it both together, but I'm saying that when craving is more powerful, it's very difficult to do any vipassana. So you have first you minimize the strength through sila and then samadhi, and then you can handle it. Like when you want to fight against the enemy, you have to first make him weak, and then you get rid of him. Yeah.
Bhante, if I may ask a question. when we cultivate bhavana, how do we distinguish between wisdom that is arise out of intellectual reasoning or through insight? How do we tell that apart? Thank you, Bhante.
Bhante, are you familiar with these terms? There are three levels of understanding. One is understanding by listening or like learning, called Suttamaya Panya, understanding by listening. And then the second level of understanding is understanding through reflection, Chintamaya Panya. And then third one is understanding through cultivation of the mind, maybe direct experience. So the difference between the understanding, the wisdom come from vipassana, and then the understanding that we get as a result of discussion, contemplation, reflection. So difference would be the let's say we can have a logical understanding, like a makes sense. It makes sense when you say the craving produces suffering. When someone explain it us clearly, the condition, showing all the steps, it makes sense to us. So we accept it, it makes sense to us. And then there is intellectual, the insight that is developed from the intellectual. But if there's a moment that in your own life, on your own direct experience, you notice it. You at one moment you really want something, you don't get it, and you experience the pains and the craving. And maybe you experience in a very subtle mind experiences, the minor moment, not the big moment, maybe a very subtle moment. You feel like moving your leg and you want it, but you can't do it, right? So the direct experiential knowledge is something that we develop in the way called, bhavanamaya prajna, or the insightful wisdom. So difference is this: the intellectual understanding can be forgotten sometime if we don't, renew it, if we don't keep, reflecting, if we don't have a discussion, if we are more going away from our spiritual friends and teachers, we may lose that understanding. It can be clouded, not clear. But any understanding that you have got from your direct personal experience through calm mind, you will never forget it. Because it's not something that you'll forget. It's something that you experientially, got it. So the difference will be that our insights we get from our thinking can be forgotten, can be, late. One time it was clear, and another time, is it really how it's happening? Another time it's not clear. But the experiential understanding is there forever. Yeah. But intellectual understanding is a prerequisite for us to have a direct experiential understanding.
It's more spontaneous and it's long-lasting.
Yes, exactly.
Hello, Bhante. I wanted to ask about determination of enlightenment. So as I heard, for example, one of reasoning why monk can be expelled forever is if he false claim himself as enlightened. So how will it be determined that it was what he said is false? So how the process is going? Yeah, because I was interested on how it goes.
So, yes, there are 4 cardinal precepts for monks to follow, and the one is lying, but lying about one's own spiritual attainment. And if one monk lie about one's spiritual attainment, claiming that he has achieved certain, levels of, attainment, as magga or phala, without really attaining it, and it's a most cardinal, breaking the cardinal precept. So your question is how one decides whether he has lied.
Yeah, so how you find out that it was false what he said?
Yeah. Actually, there is a exception in the rule itself, it says that sometime when monks are in this spiritual practice, they themselves can be misguided. They we call anyatra adhimana, and the monks they truly think that they have achieved certain levels, but not really achieving it. But they misunderstood their attainment. So in that case, he may say that I achieved that level, but he believed that he has achieved it. So he will say that, but truly he hasn't achieved it. So but as long as he is telling what he believes, he is not breaking the precept. But he willingly, knowingly claims to have achieved things that he hasn't achieved, and that's the breaking of the precept. Yeah. So there's no the other monks can accuse a monk from claiming wrong claims, and then if such an accusation happens, there'll be a solution. The meeting to solution that. Otherwise, it's a natural. So if you purposely, if you falsely claim something that you haven't achieved, so your monkhood is gone, and then whatever you do as a monk is creating a lot of bad karma for you. That's all. There's no no one is going around the monks and checking whether he has done the case. But if there's an accusation, there will be a committee to decide that. But other than that, it's quite personal. Yeah. But if monks thinks that he truly achieved it even mistakenly, and if he believes that, he's not breaking the precept. Because sometimes we can be misguided. But there are also instructions how not to be misguided. It's a carelessness. But he purposely claimed just to achieve maybe more attention, more other kinds of gains, and definitely he has lost his monkhood. Yeah. It's about honesty. Thank you. Yeah, welcome.
Bhante, please may I ask on bhava tanha and vibhava tanha, craving on existence, that means we crave to come back again, and craving for non-existence. What is meant by craving for non-becoming? Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, sister. This is a very, very subtle point. Very subtle point. So we talk about bhava tanha, craving for self-existence, maybe craving for maintaining self-identity, and that is the craving that bring us back again and again to different births, because we want to maintain this self-identity, this self-existence, and we have grasped this concept of I. So we want to maintain it. And then, so the whole Buddhist practice is to look into that, craving for maintaining self-identity, or craving for this self-existence, and then pushing forward this, I and self, and understanding that, and then, and then overcoming it. So someone can easily think that, okay, in that case, what we had to do is to develop the wanting to non-exist, maybe destroy the identity. But then in the Buddhist teaching, vibhava tanha, the craving for non-existence, or craving for, actually the vibhava also means destruction, craving for the destruction of the existence of I, is also a very dangerous craving. So for an ordinary person, vibhava tanha can look very similar to nibbana. That is what we are trying, right? We are trying to overcome our self-preoccupation. We are trying to overcome our attachment to self. So vibhava tanha, wanting to stop this. I don't want this. I don't want to born again. This is enough for me. We think, oh, that's a very good Buddhist. But actually, there is the other craving, according to Buddha's understanding, vibhavatanha. So how we can distinguish, actually? Vibhavatanha, although it's like a not wanting to be anymore, is based on very big misunderstanding. Because that is not wanting to be, like not wanting to, it's like a wanting to destroy the I. So even though it is different from the bhavatanha, the wanting to like maintain the self-identity, vibhavatanha is also based on the belief of a separate I. Because in vibhavatanha, you want to destroy the existing I. That is what you desire for. Although you have a desire to destroy, but you still have the belief or the acceptance or the attachment or the notion, idea of a I, separate I. So therefore it is considered unhealthy. And it's going, to the other extreme. So because when you understand the five aggregates, this is a constant, process occurring again and again like a stream. There is no I to maintain, there's no I to destroy. So wanting to destroy I is vibhavatanha, wanting to maintain I is bhavatanha. In reality, there's no such thing called I. But we can develop, craving for that. So it's, and that is a very subtle, manifestation of the craving. If you don't get what you want, you will develop really like, anger, and you don't want anything, right? And that's, but anyway, so even the vibhavatanha also has an underlying wrong understanding of a separate I. In both cases, there's an I that you want to either get rid of or you want to continue or maintain.
From this chart, I noticed there's arupa, arupa, jhana, and is it these two parts of jhanas during the Buddha's time, they already been achieved by other sects, other religions? But the only difference is it that Buddhas have comes up to these cessations of sensation and feeling which the others do not have? Is it there's a difference between, or this is basically, what's the difference between the Veda and the Buddha's teaching? Can we see from this difference here? The last part that others don't achieve, but Buddhas achieve. Yeah. Can Bhante clarify on this?
Yeah.
Thank you.
The last in a state, like a deeper, the level what you call cessation of the perception and feelings, and that only can be achieved if we start from a proper place. See, it's only be achieved by an already enlightened being. If someone achieved that, and when he comes down, he's already enlightened. That completely eradicated all the defilements. So either that state is something that only an enlightened being can go all the way, or if we manage to go all the way, when you come down, you're already an enlightened being. Because that state is something that will not be able to achieve by a person who did not start with what you call samadhi. If someone, anyone can meditate, anyone can calm their mind, anyone can, calm the fluctuation of the mind. So then, of course, they can experience all these jhanic experiences. But only a person who starts with samadhi, and then some deep understanding of this selfless nature, the anatta nature, will be able to achieve, like even to let go of the neva sanya, na sanya, that level, because otherwise they stay in that level. because they don't have, that understanding before that. So only a person who has, let's say briefly, only a person who has a right, samma ditthi, and has that some training, that familiarity with that techniques, can achieve that, and only the enlightened being will experience. Anyone who has experienced that cessation experience is enlightened being, whether before it or once you achieve it. Yes.
Why does neutral feeling lead to delusion, and what kind of delusion is that?
You had a discussion on lobha, dosha, moha, right? You had a discussion on that? Not yet? Oh, okay. Yeah. Just to give a brief explanation, usually the pleasant experiences will lead you to crave, greed, like a lobha. Unpleasant experiences will lead us to dosa, anger or resentment. And the neutral feeling will affirm, maybe feed what you call moha, delusion. Reason is that most of the time we are having neutral feelings. We have pleasant feelings, unpleasant feelings too, but most of the time what we are going through is the neutral feeling. And this neutral feeling, if we attend to this neutral feeling without any understanding or mindfulness, it affirms an existence of an I. That is how we justify our idea of I. This neutral sensation occurring all the time. That is how we justify that. We confirm again and again. We confirm that there is me over here. I feel these things, right? So, so neutral feeling can be very innocent. It will not develop craving or we will not develop anger, but it will confirm unconsciously a sense of I. That is why it says it feeds delusion. Yeah. Then there's only a few more minutes to 10 o'clock, so I think it's an appropriate time for us to conclude the session. So today, by listening to this Dhamma and spending this time contemplating on the profound teachings of the Buddha, we have generated the enlightenment factor, what we call Dhamma Vichaya, the analyzing the teachings of the Buddha, the analyzing the phenomena, the mental and physical phenomena. So as a result of that, developing the Dhamma Vichaya, we have generated wholesomeness, we have trained ourselves, and additionally, as a byproduct, we have also developed a lot of good merits and good karma. And let us share these merits with all others. And first of all, let us think about the great teachers who helped us, who showed this path to us. And let us share these merits with all of them. I'd like to recall to our mind right now our late Chief Kesari Dhammananda Nayaka Mahathir, and also our great teacher, late Dr. Madhavala Punnaji Mahathir, and also our late sister Bodhi, who recently passed away, and any other teacher who showed this path of the Dhamma to you. Recall them and share these merits with them. And also let us also share these merits with all our family members, ancestors. May they all rejoice in these merits. May they all be benefited from these merits. May they continue their spiritual path. May they all have steady progress towards the Nibbana, the enlightenment. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Idang mi ñātinang hotu sukhita hontu ñātayo. Idang mi ñātinang hotu sukhita hontu ñātayo. Idang mi ñātinang hotu sukhita hontu ñātayo. Let us also share these merits with all other living beings. all the celestial beings and all other beings who are suffering. And if anyone would like to share this kind of merit, may all these beings share these merits. May all these beings be well, happy and peaceful. Ettavata ca amhi sambhatang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sangpatti siddhya. Ettavata ca amhi sambhatang punya sampadang sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sangpatti siddhya. Ettavata ca amhi sambhatam punya sampadam sabbe sattha anumodantu sabba sangpatti siddhya.